Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Hello again, GoPro Radio audience. It's 7 p.m. Wednesday night, so it must be for the Earl Morgan Hour with your host, Earl Morgan. As usual, you can like us on Facebook at the Earl Morgan Hour, at Twitter at Earl Morgan, and if you wish to comment on anything you hear tonight, and we hope you do, you can call us at 714-888-7444. You can donate to GoPro Radio, which we certainly hope you will take the time and the few dollars you can spare, or the many dollars you can spare, to donate at www.goproradio.com and click the donate button on the home page. And that's all it takes. What you're listening to in the background is Bitches Brew by Miles Davis, one of my favorite all-time artists. And tonight I have a co-host, Tania Bland, who is going to be sitting in with me for several weeks. Good evening, Tania. Everyone. Yes, she is a very smart, erudite, bright woman who has a couple of things she's gonna do tonight that I am very impressed with the way that she handled it. She went at it the right jab that we do in a different way, and I think you'll appreciate it when you hear it. But right now, I have to tell you that we're doing our first segment here, which is our book note segment. So you can hear the book note segment segue right here. And tonight, we're going to be doing the last of a trilogy of novellas called The Rite of Passage, Jacob's Rite of Passage. And this is the last book in the passage. It's called the series, and it's called The Man Jacob. And I got to tell you that we have reviewed the other two novellas on. It's written by Clarence Matthews, who is a Jersey City man who is also an author. And this last book, the others were great, but this one really hit me in the soul, because Jacob is a man, goes through so many things that I remember. He comes north from North Carolina, where his family were sharecroppers. And, well, let me say again, all three of the novellas were great. And it's about Jacob from infancy to manhood, and how he learned to be a man, how people affected his life, how he learned from his brother, his sisters, his mother, and his father, what it took to grow up. It wasn't and I'm going to get into that, it wasn't anything formal, but it did the job well enough. And it speaks to me, because it was very much the way that my contemporaries were brought up. We had no formal rite of passage, but there was a certain way that we were raised, and that the community gathered around us to make sure that we were safe and protected. That's very, very, very hard to find today. But in Jacob the Man, we find the protagonist struggling with lost love as two meaningful romantic relationships in his life fall apart, leaving him somewhat, well, we should say, embittered towards women, and determined not to ever be hurt again. He's come to Newark, New Jersey to try to make his life a little better, because in the South, as we know, people had a hard life down there, and there was not a lot to do, and sharecropping isn't something you want to do for the rest of your life. He came here to Newark, got a job, and started to see what he could do to make something out of himself. He made up his mind after that, when he had been hurt, that he was not going to be hurt again. He more or less didn't turn his back on women, but he just went through a series of women. He just he didn't want to settle down with one particular female. He bounced around from job to job, was bit at loose end, and befriended some interesting people along the way, including one friend, a Mr. Ed, who he met that lived in his neighborhood. Mr. Ed, or Mr. Edwards as he was called by one and all, became very attached to Jacob, and they used to go fishing all the time. And one of the things that was interesting about Mr. Ed is that the way that Clarence Matthews, the author of this book, handled racism was interesting. It was always there, but subtle. It wasn't, we knew it was there. Everyone knew it was in the background. It was what shaped lives, but he didn't usually get very deep into it. But you were always aware of the fact that it was a constant in the lives of black people. But with Mr. Ed, it came out. Mr. Ed one day told our protagonist, Jacob, about why he left his home in North Carolina. It seems that Mr. Ed had been picked up and put on a chain gang. Now, what you have to understand is that at a certain time in American history, they would find a black man walking along and arrest him for loitering, anything, and put him on and take him into a justice of the peace, who would then sentence him to tell him, well, all right, you've been found guilty of whatever, and you'll have to pay a fine of $120. Well, no black man had $120. So he would then be assigned to a chain gang or a work group or rented out to a farmer, a coal mine, or a mill to work off the money he owed. And this happened all the time. I call it penury. That was another name for it, penury. And they did this for years. And they were still doing it back even when Jacob was a boy. But Mr. Ed, one day he was the youngest man on his work crew, and he was a runner. He would run and get water and run and get whatever else was necessary to get. And one day he went to run to get some water, and he just kept running. He was just tired of it. And he managed to escape and make his way north. But he said he could never go home again because he was afraid that he would be spotted and arrested, and the whole horror show would start all over again for him. So he never went back home. But he yearned very much to go back home. I understand that. My mother and father both came from the South, as I believe did you, Tenia.
Absolutely.
And home is there, no matter how hard it was. And he wanted to go home, but he couldn't. Finally, he asked Jacob to drive him home. He said, everybody that was involved in my case is dead, so I'm not worried about them anymore. And he said, I want to go home to live. And he did that. But the story touched on something that most black people have no idea of, that they would do that to you. They would arrest you and then there were, when this was going on at its height, people never got out. They found ways to increase your fines, and people spent years trying to get out of that situation. Many died. Many in coal mines and steel mills and iron works died and were buried behind the factories. But this wasn't where Clarence Matthews made the racism that was prevalent in those days, or in the days of Mr. Edward, which were just a little before Jacob was born. How that affected his life so much he had to leave where he was and he couldn't go back. But the interesting thing about Jacob, he just kept growing. And all through the book you see ways that the parents, his older brother, he called him Big Brother, who was one of his mentors, the lessons he learned from them that kept him on a steady course. He had problems, but he was able to solve all of them. And finally he did marry and went back to school, took accounting and sales, got a job, and he made a good life for himself. So I just want to say, Tenia, do you know of stories like this?
I do. As a matter of fact, the book I was introducing which is the 12 tribes of Hattie, also deals with the migration to the north.
The great migration of black people from the south to the north that took place.
I remember something my grandmother told me, that when people were not working, as you see them loitering on our corners, they were picked up and they were put on those chain gangs.
They worked.
So you didn't get a chance to be idle.
No. All that idle labor was grist with a mill, as we can say, and they put them to work, and they made them work long, hard hours for no pay. But I'm going to just read something from the preface of this book that I think is important to mention, and that is something that they tried to instill throughout the book in the readers, that Jacob participated in a formal rite of, if Jacob had participated in a formal rite of passage, he would qualify for the incorporation phrase now that he is an adult. The final stage is where transitional adolescents, adults, are inserted back into the community with a new identity, equipped with moral, traditional, spiritual, and cultural and social values. They are now in a position to practice what they've learned and impact those around them. The process is ever evolving as these adults participate in the rite of passage of their own children or serve as mentors or elders to other adolescents in the community. Jacob's personal transformation, paired with the results of change, postures him to positively impact the lives of young men in his appropriate sphere of influence and create expanded opportunities for disciplining young people on a broader level. And that's exactly what he did. Jacob actually joined the church, worked with young men, and they spoke very briefly but pointedly about something that had changed in our community. And they asked what it was, and one of the pastors said, well, I think that what they've done since the civil rights movement is they figured if they dumb down our people, they won't have to worry about a challenge from them. That was an interesting idea, but we certainly seem to be dumbed down.
What a longing our community has for that now, mentoring, especially of young men.
Yeah, well, you know, the way that this was done before, the entire community, Jacob often uses this phrase throughout this book, it takes a village.
It does.
Now, I remember when Hillary Clinton appropriated that for her book, but she got it from us.
Yes.
It's because that's an old African proverb. It takes a village to raise a child. And that's how I was raised. All my community, all my neighbors, everyone was involved in making sure that I did the right thing. And if I didn't do the right thing, there was my mother and father who would point out the error of my ways in very stark terms.
Well, things didn't change much because I was raised by that village also.
Yeah, well, at some point we lost that. And our adults now are almost afraid of our children, who will not listen to anything we say, or will I say, put it this way, they have created their own world, and they're in it and we're not. And we somehow have to break through and begin to restore that kind of a relationship so that the elders have some influence on the children, because they're children.
Exactly.
You know, so we're about ready to take another break in 2 minutes. So I'm going to tell you right now that my co-host here has something that she has researched and done that really I thought was excellently handled for one of our segments of our program, the right jab. I think that you will find this very, very interesting, and hopefully it will give you some information about what is going on in Florida with the Stand Your Ground. I know you think we talk a lot about Stand Your Ground, but it is a bizarre situation down there. It is like nothing I've ever seen on the American scene. I've been around a while, but this new way they're handling this issue of guns and people. Last week I talked about a man who was legally blind who killed somebody with a rifle and got away with it. Now, this wasn't a black on white situation. This was two white guys. he shot his friend, and this was supposedly his friend. It must be a very, very chancy thing to be this guy's friend. And he shot him from 18 inches away and killed him. Went to trial, was acquitted, and they returned the weapons he had to him and he said that he needed the weapons to defend himself. He's legally blind, can't see. But it's time for a break now, so just stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a great opportunity. If you have a product or a service, a talent or something important to say, now's your chance to have your very own radio show. Whether you're just starting out, a veteran looking for a professional platform to enhance your presentation, the GoPro Radio Network is the premier place to cultivate and share new and exciting content. We'll help you to grow your audience and keep it growing long after your first broadcast. Now you have a voice. Call 212-696-8562 today or visit www.goproradio.com and you'll be amazed at how easy and affordable it is to have your very own show on the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
We're back at the Earl Morgan Hour on GoPro Radio. You can follow us on Facebook at the Earl Morgan Hour and on Twitter at Earl Morgan Hour. Or you can call in if you feel so moved to comment on something that you've heard on the air at 714-888-7444. Again, that number is 714-888-7444. If you wish to donate to GoPro Radio, and we sure wish that you would like to donate to GoPro Radio, and you do, you can do that at www.goproradio.com and click the donate button on the homepage. And the music you're listening to is Miles Davis's Bitches Brew. I have with me tonight a co-host, Tenia Bland, who is going to handle the next segment of the show that we call Right Punch and Right Jab. Talk about a Freudian slip. So, Tenia, what are you going to talk about tonight?
Well, let's remember we just left Black History Month, and March is Women's History Month. So I want to capitalize on both. I'm going to talk about a black woman, and I'm going to talk about women, being Women's History Month. I want to bring us to the great strides that women have made in the past as well as what we're doing now. The fact that we're raising children, we're working jobs, we're putting food on the table, we're working towards eliminating the boundaries that divide us by working toward being paid equally, and then attempting to enjoy womanhood. So I want to focus on what women have done tonight. We have many women that are working toward making indelible marks on history. But I'd like to talk about two instead of one. And I hope that this jab really keeps them far away from me. Do you recognize the name Angela B. Corney?
Yeah, she's the prosecutor that in Florida that prosecuted the Trayvon Martin case and the case of the other young man who was shot and killed. And she also prosecuted several other cases in Florida. As a matter of fact, she's a state attorney, so essentially she prosecutes almost everything.
Well, that's the point. She's the first woman to hold the position of state attorney. She was elected in 2008, serving as the state attorney in Florida's 4th Judicial Circuit Court, which includes Duval County, Nassau County, and Clay counties. Upon taking office, this is the point that, through my research, really troubled me. When she took office, Corney terminated 10 assistant state attorneys. as well as half of the office investigators, 2/5 of its victims' advocates, and a quarter of its 35 paralegals, and 48 other office support staff. What do you think of that?
Well, she gutted the office. She reduced her staff to a skeleton of what it was. Most people in government and everywhere else was always trying to keep their people, and she let all of these people go. That's very unusual.
Now, when you gut your staff, you work harder. So you have less time and less people to investigate for you. So I want to explore how that affects us. The State Attorney General Corney also sent 230 juvenile felony cases to adult court in 2009. The reason why that's important is because that doubled the number of felony cases placed in the court
Right.
prior to her becoming state attorney in Florida. The governor, who is Rick Scott, appointed Corney as special prosecutor to investigate the killing of, you're right, Trayvon Martin by George Zimmerman.
Is that a picture of Corney that you brought with you?
Right. This is our first state attorney
In Florida.
in Florida. This is it across the board. This was the first one. Now, let's realize with the George Zimmerman case, he was acquitted on July 13th by a 6-woman jury of second-degree murder and a lesser offense of manslaughter using Florida's stand your ground law, which we now know. Florida's resident, who I really want to talk about tonight, our second woman, this is Marissa Alexander. She attempted to use the stand your ground statute of Florida when she fired the warning shot that we all know about now to allegedly protect herself against her estranged husband, Rico Gray.
Her estranged, abusive husband.
Okay. She was not permitted to use the stand your ground statute.
Well, why not?
Ah, very good. Well, she was originally convicted, let's realize this, because we're going into trial number 2. Now, she's already been convicted. She had an opportunity to use the stand your ground law, allegedly. They said, take it or leave it. She decided that she would try her hand at trial. You know, the thing you call the justice system.
Right.
Well, the justice system sentenced her to 20 years in prison under the Florida's mandatory minimum sentence. Mandatory.
So you have to serve at least 20 years.
At least. The jury in her original trial took 12 minutes before bringing back her conviction. Just 12 minutes. That's all it took for 20 years. But she wasn't allowed to use the stand your ground statute. Now, Marissa was granted a retrial, but let me tell you why. Because the jury instructions were flawed.
Okay. I've heard of that before.
Okay. Now, Corney, she now seeks not the 20 years for Marissa, but 60 years she's looking for in the second trial for firing the warning shot. Not in the public, not hitting anyone, just a warning shot. When George Zimmerman was found not guilty of killing Trayvon Martin, the public was outraged. Do you remember how outraged the public was?
Still kind of outraged.
Well, why aren't we outraged in this case for Marissa Alexander? Where are the Second Amendment supporters who have encouraged women to get guns for themselves to protect us against violence and sexual assault? Where are the Zimmerman supporters that were so outraged, but also those who praised his action when he believed he was using self-defense?
When he said he was in fear of his life. We also, I think, should point out that in the case of Marissa, this abusive husband had put her in the hospital. She was, and she had a warrant against him.
A restraining order.
A restraining order. So he was in her presence, threatening her, she said, and she got a gun and fired a warning shot because she had been beaten and abused by this man before in the past.
Well, the court documents also went on to show that originally in testimony, he said that he did come to the house. He admitted that he had abused her in the past, which would...
Yes, he did. I remember that.
Which would cause one to believe that the jury heard this, that this went on during questioning. So if you've been threatened, then maybe if this man comes back who is bigger than you and is standing in front of you and there's no one else at the house...
And he's threatening you.
You may be threatened now. So
yeah.
if George Zimmerman felt threatened by someone who was running away from him, and the police told him not to pursue, you tell me, where is the parity? Is there any? Have you found it? Can you help us?
No, there's no parity there. That is the problem. Oh, just not to interrupt you, but they went into session yesterday in the Florida legislature to repair their law. And how they're going to repair it is what they call the warning shot. This is because of Marissa. Instead of getting rid of the law, now they want to make it legal to do the warning shot thing.
But understand this. This woman has 3 children, 2 of which were with her first husband, who is helping her with this case because she doesn't have an anger management problem, he alleges. This last child is with this quote-unquote abusive husband.
Oh, yeah, right.
How does this help a mother who has been locked away and then sentenced to 20 years, who's now out on bail, who's now about to be charged, and if convicted, receives 60 years, repairing a statute so that now you can have a warning shot? How does this help her?
It doesn't. And the interesting thing is, I'm not sure that it would include her case. It would maybe include cases after her case, after her conviction or Wilder, but it's not the same. It just the problem seems to me here is they passed such an imprecise and imperfect law that you have blind men shooting people and getting away with it. You have other people shooting people and getting away. I mean, the young Davis boy that was killed by Dunn, I think his name is. They didn't convict him for shooting and killing him. They convicted him for shooting at somebody else who was in the car that he was in. This is not. You got to scratch your head and wonder what are they doing?
Well, I want to bring us back to the point that our Attorney General, Angela Corney, we have to look at when you dismantle your office and you don't have enough help, what happens? And I want to bring us back to Women's History Month. Here we have a woman that they are redoing a law for, Mrs. Alexander. And here we have another woman, African American woman, Black History Month, and Women's History Month. There's a petition online that they're asking us to sign, so that we can say we are still not happy with the way Florida is running this infamous Stand Your Ground statute.
Yeah, this is it's you know, the blind gentleman who shot his friend John Wayne Rogers was his name. He shot his friend. This is not a stranger. These were not 2 black guys. These are 2 white guys. And he shot and they were horsing around, and it seemed to have gotten to the point where he felt he had to go get a gun and shoot somebody. And he did, and got away with it. At the same time, we're talking about Marissa, who was in fear for her safety for good reason. She had been hospitalized by this guy.
But she doesn't shoot him. She's not firing at a crowd. She is not in public. She does not seek to kill him. She has the wherewithal to think, maybe if I fire a warning shot, he will stop.
Yes. That should be enough. Maybe that will be enough to back him off. and sober him up enough to realize, and I don't mean he was drunk, but to make him sober of mind enough to realize I am facing a woman with a gun who has fired a shot that warned me. The next one may not be a warning shot. It was protection. However, she ends up in jail. Prison. Now, I'm afraid we have to go to another break. Please stay tuned. We're coming back. We're going to do a segment of the show we call Spin the Bottle. Now, this is sort of a grab something out of the air thing. It's my own personal peek at something, or my own personal take on something that I find just not right, or something I might think is just right. So we're going to go into that. We're going to go into Spin the Bottle. We're going on a break. I'm sorry. We're going to go on a break. We're going to come back with Spin the Bottle.
The views and opinions expressed on GoPro Radio Network shows are solely those of the speakers and are not necessarily the views or opinions of GoPro Radio Networks, Inc. or its affiliates. These broadcasts are provided on the understanding that they do not constitute professional advice or services. Individuals who speak in these broadcasts express their own opinions, experiences, and conclusions. GoPro Radio Networks and its affiliates do not necessarily endorse or oppose any particular opinion or conclusion discussed in these broadcasts. You may not edit, modify, or redistribute these broadcasts in any way without the express permission of GoPro Radio Networks, Inc. GoPro Radio Networks assumes no liability for any of your activities in connection with these broadcasts or for your use of these broadcasts in connection with your website, computer, or playing device.
You want to know the truth, folks? Do you really want to know the truth? Well, perhaps you can't handle the truth. But if you can listen to GoPro Radio. Tune in at www.goproradio.com. Now, have I made myself clear?
GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head. I know I do.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
All right, we're back with the Earl Morgan Hour. You're listening to your host, Earl Morgan. You can follow us at Twitter at Earl Morgan Hour and Facebook at The Earl Morgan Hour. And we have in our studio tonight a guest, Pat O Malia, an old friend of mine. Well, not too old, but somebody I feel like an old friend, who is very, very phenomenal person. He started a company called Hudson Media Group here in Jersey City, and we had nothing like it before, and we haven't. And in the interest of full disclosure, I do a television show for Pat called Street Talk, and we have not had the entrepreneurial whatever for someone to do what he's done. And I wanted to find out, because even I don't know why he did this and how he makes this work. His show is usually seen almost exclusively on online radio and on television, cable television. So we want to talk about it tonight, but Tina and I will talk to Pat tonight and ask him what goes. How did you come to the idea to do this, which had never been done before? How did you do it? Because I've been in your studio, I've seen the work you've done, I've watched it grow, and I'd like to know what possessed you to do this. It's a great thing, but why?
If you remember, Earl, I was in radio, and a friend of ours was the mayor of Jersey City at the time, Glenn D. Cunningham.
Yes.
And Glenn and I would spar on the radio, and we had a good relationship. Glenn wanted to do a TV show, which would have been the Jersey City show. And we started, putting money aside to get the equipment. You needed a set, you needed a couch, you needed, chair, the desk, the whole thing. But unfortunately, before the Jersey City show started, Glenn had passed on.
Yeah.
But we still had the show. So we had to change gears pretty quick, and the Jersey City show became the weekly show. and we were filming at the Landmark Lowe's Theater, as you recall.
Yes.
And we started with the weekly show, and the weekly show did pretty well. And we interviewed, the political figures, business community, civic leaders, but I still wanted to do the Jersey City show. So we eventually brought the Jersey City show in. I hosted both. And as we had the people in the Lowe's Theater, people like yourself, the political figures themselves, Bill O'Day, Stick Romano, Doreen DiDomenico, our council people, they wanted to be on TV. And little by little, we had Tom DeGeese. We had Tom's show at the Landmark Lowe's.
Tom DeGeese is the Hudson County
exec. And after a while, it became a little too much for the volunteer group to keep changing sets, and storage was a problem. And the big space in my office building became available. It was a legal firm. And one day I was walking down the steps. I was on the second floor. I just happened to look in the door. I said, that's a pretty big space. And I stuck my nose in a little more and said, this could make a fairly good studio. And I spoke to people like Joe Panapinto and Manny Stern from Harts Mountain, and they were willing to invest a little money so we can get lights and audio and soundboards and mixes. And we did that, and I intended to open it up to anybody who wanted to do a show, yourself, all the political figures. And today we produce 16 different shows.
Including mine.
Your show, the most important show we do, is Hudson County at Large, where Captain Keith Stitz profiles the wanted criminals we're looking for in Hudson County.
Yes.
Gene Rubino, the assistant Hudson County prosecutor, we're in the process of doing a show now, putting together a show. We're in pre-production. Cold cases, people who we're still looking for. As much as we like to do the fluff stuff, you still have to do the important stuff, the crime, the criminals, the Jersey City show, where every week I beat up on Mayor over something, such as you do in your columns.
We have a caller we'd like to take right now, please. Yes, caller. Hello?
Hello, is somebody there? Well, let's...
Hello?
There
yes.
you go.
Yes.
You're on the air. Where you from? What's your name and where you from?
Wait a minute, Pat. This is my show.
I know, but it's in my blood.
Yes. Hello, caller. Who are you and where are you from?
Hi. My name is Mary. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana.
Okay.
Is that anywhere near Monroe, Louisiana?
Or New Orleans?
No, New Orleans. We just finished Mardi Gras. We're starting we finished that Tuesday. And I caught your show by just turning it on, and it was so interesting. And I'd just like to say that I'd like to hear more shows like this on the air.
Now, what was interesting? Me, the guest, or was it Earl?
What did you find that piqued your interest?
The format that you have is so nice. It's relaxed. You didn't screen the callers, but a lot of time I think we get dismissed like that. So I thank you, and I'd like to see more shows like this.
Well, we'd like to give them to you. Also, let me tell you, if you wish to donate to WW GoPro Radio, you can do that at our homepage, www.goproradio.com, and just go there and push the donate button. We will be glad to accept anything that they give us, right, Tania?
And thank you for the compliment.
Okay. Now, Pat.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you very much for calling from Louisiana. Now, Pat, we were talking about how this thing got started, and it became something unusual in Jersey City.
Well, it's the only real TV studio we have in Jersey City. It's full function. We do the editing, we do the audio, we do the sets, the backdrops. Everything is one, it's turnkey, one stop. But if you recall, when I started this in radio, I started in professional wrestling, and I went from pro wrestling to politics. And pretty much it's the same thing.
I was going to say, there's not a lot of difference.
It's the same thing, just that the wrestlers had better costumes. But it's still a gimmick. The politicians have a gimmick. The wrestlers have a gimmick.
Yeah.
In fact, but if you recall on the radio, I would bring all you guys in as guests on the radio. It's the same thing I'm doing with the TV studio.
Well, actually, it's funny, Tania. I had a show on NJR years and years ago.
AM 1430?
AM 1430, which was an R&B station. And it's amazing because we're so media poor in Hudson County and New Jersey, because we're between the New York market and the Philadelphia market. We have no TV.
Well, you look at Channel 9. they may lose their broadcast license because they made an agreement to do dedicated to New Jersey.
To New Jersey, yeah.
And they, little by little, they were cutting Jersey out.
They came to see Caucus, and 2 years later they were nipping and tucking away.
You got it.
Till they weren't here anymore.
Now they're doing one show inside New Jersey or something like a TMZ kind of a show.
Yeah.
But we have an identity crisis here in New Jersey. Like you said, you got Philadelphia, and we got the big the gorilla town over there with the Empire State Building,
the big
New York
media.
City. You got it. So we have to fight for what we get. We're in Jersey City. Our mayor wants to make us the best mid-sized city in the country. It's hard when you're considered the sixth borough of New York. We're in the shadow of the Empire State Building.
One of the reasons I think he wants to spend, though I have some issues with it, $1.2 million to make people know about. I don't think that is alone. The thing is that we just get overshadowed. We don't have NBC. We don't have ABC. We don't. And ESPN and those other stations are somewhere else.
Get the people in Jersey City to know about Jersey City. You know, if you want to try to market us in Chicago, believe me, the guy in Chicago, if we get one person from Chicago to come to Jersey City, we're lucky. We're going to spend $2 million. Tell the people in Jersey City what's here in Jersey City. Yeah. A lot of us don't come down to this section of Jersey City anymore. No. You got to start marketing to Jersey City.
As a matter of fact, you mentioned that, and the truth of the matter is, how many times do you come down to downtown, Tania?
Well, for work, I need to.
Oh, now.
So I'm here often.
Right. I know my town pretty well, or I did. I don't know the waterfront. I get lost down here. I have to go to Joe Panapinto's office, and I end up going everywhere but to his office.
That's how Jersey City people are. We got a huge mall here. We would go to that mall if you didn't have to pay to park. Jersey City people are just not going to pay to park.
True.
We're not going to do that.
True.
It really is kind of a tale of two cities here in Jersey City. You got the waterfront. This area right around here in the downtown, this is one city. And then above Baldwin Avenue is becoming another city.
Yeah.
Well, really, that is Old Jersey.
That's Old Jersey City. Yeah. This is a different city. When I was a kid coming downtown, this was an Hispanic area. This was all Hispanic. They're all gone.
When I was a kid, this is my neck of the woods here. We used to come down. We weren't doing any good, but we were coming down here.
We have another caller.
Good evening.
Good evening. Name, please, and where you're from. Hello?
Yes, hello.
Yes.
This is Richard from Jersey City.
Yes, Richard. What's on your mind?
I just would like to discuss why African American youth in this neighborhood would not take part in extracurricular activities to understand why and to at least have some sort of hope for the future.
Okay.
And one,
well, first I'm going to point to the breakup of the family. That's a problem right off the bat with family. The problem with the youth of Jersey City is the mom and dad. And in the case of the black community, there aren't many dads around. I think 73% of the births in the black community are the single mothers.
Yeah, but there's something else too. And it goes to the media thing. We can both talk about this. There are things, you said it, Pat. You just said it a few minutes ago. We don't know what's available. And you know, we don't really push it hard enough. There are things that people can do here. I am impressed with, to some degree, what the mayor, recreation directors. Now I got to be again, in point of full disclosure, the guy happens to be my cousin.
Yeah, I think he's
doing
a good job.
He's doing a pretty good job. But the problem this kid is talking about, and I understand, the recreation is not in those neighborhoods. Where I always say, look, if you got the 1.2 mil that you want to spend on those things, spend it on, say, fixing the YMCA, which is in Ward F, which has a swimming pool. It has all kinds of recreational facilities, handball courts, all kinds.
Well, we got to get these kids in school. You know, they can play football, basketball, hockey, everything. But if they're not in school, they don't have any future. And unless mom and dad is making these kids go to school, making sure they do their homework, I don't care how good they are in sport, they're not going to succeed.
The problem here is that there's another area. I think there's another area. Tenia, you tell me what now. Tenia has a son who is one of those people. Tell us about how you deal with that.
You know, gentlemen, I was going to say, let me jump in a younger head here. I would have loved to hear what this young man thought the fix would have been. And one of the problems I see, having been a teacher, is too quickly we provide answers. Too quickly we provide what we think the answer is, that it's the mom and dad, that they're not going to school. I would have loved to hear what the caller thought the problem was.
I don't know if he's still there.
You with us, Richard? I think Richard's gone.
Okay.
Well, one of the problems with the schools also
is volunteering with a local garden.
Can you
now, I know that there aren't any youth who do it, but I earn civic credits for my part. And with my school, I make sure that I send invites to my classmates.
You know what,
Do you have
Richard?
any reason?
That's a great thing that you're doing. And this means that you are an example to others. So if we had more young people that are doing what you did, we wouldn't have this problem. How can we influence the community of young people to do just what you're doing? How can we keep them in school? How can we make them civic-minded?
I would say that you would have to start with the basics as far as putting it as a recommended, you would get more points in school. Let's say with high school you would make it extracurricular class in school. So it would be recommended they would be learning, and also they would have points for school.
Well, I agree with all that, but we got to get the kids into the school.
I'm finished, man. Well, it's a lot more complicated than that. It's that and to some degree you go back to what you said about the family, but we are where we are, young man. How some of the ideas you got certainly sound good, but what can you think of to do that would give to spread more information around as to what is available to the young people?
Can I chime in here a minute? You know, what this...
Hold on, we got to go for a break.
Yeah.
Richard, stay there. We're gonna talk to you some more, so don't go anywhere.
GoPro Radio, the fastest growing network in the galaxy, is leaner and meaner with a new attitude, new technology, and a brand new lineup. Tune in and get wired every Wednesday, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern with the BCS Experience featuring Byron C. Saunders, formerly of New York City's WBAI. Then at 6 p.m., it's the Black Agenda TV Express featuring sought-out political commentator Glenn Ford, formerly of America's Black Forum. Then at 8 p.m., it's time for Kay Thompson Live with the legendary radio host Kay Thompson of Inner City Broadcasting's WLIB and her son, renowned actor Eric Payne, who starred in such films as Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, Drop Squad, and many more. Then, at 9 p.m., it's Food Rap, featuring Nina Markel, a.k.a. the unofficial mayor of Jersey City, and former Viacom marketing guru Shauna Glover. Last but not least, at 10 p.m. Eastern, it's The Sexy Party Show, with the bad boy of dating Mr. Locario of I Love New York fame and his partner in crime, Miles Cunningham. So get wired every Wednesday from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern only on the GoPro Radio Network, www.goproradio.com. Listen to the voices in your head.
You're listening to content developed by the GoPro Radio Network, the fastest growing network in the galaxy. GoPro Radio Network. Listen to the voices in your head.
Richard is still with us. Richard, are you still with us? Is he still with us? Okay.
Well, I want to commend you for calling in. I want to tell you how much we appreciate that, because until we get young men and women who are willing to be part of the solution, we're always going to be the ones that are talking about what we should do. But we need this generation, so I applaud you.
I think so. If you have enough interest to make the call, that's good. And we need to hear what your point of view is on this, because, you know, sometimes we adults don't always know the best. Yes.
One solution that might be considered would be advertising by social media. So it was advertised that extracurricular activities such as gardening or civic classes would account for a grade and see a higher frequency of youth attending those activities.
I see. So what you would say is that like there are some schools that have gardens attached to them, like
some
12
schools. That's right. And you know what? I hope that as a Jersey Cityite, you will come down to the Astor Free Garden, because we work with Lincoln High School, we work with 12 School, and during the summer we had a special program that we did advertise on social media.
That's right, on social media.
And we had children from every single high school in Hudson County. And I hope you are connected to a garden.
Yes, that would be good.
I am, which is, and also another thing, this would possibly lead into possibly feeding of those which may not have enough healthy things. If you work at the garden and you put in the correct hours, it should be possible that the garden could be able to reimburse you not by money, but possibly by some vegetables to take home, or maybe teaching you how to cook a good meal like string beans, maybe pasta, spaghetti, small things that are healthy, and will give you information.
All that is good. We have to get the kids into school. We need them to learn. We need them to read. We need them to be able to spell. We need to be able to do math. They have to do the basics.
Well,
hopefully
Pat, let me tell you.
When we were kids, we used to have cooking classes in school.
You know
they don't have
Pat,
You don't have that anymore.
Pat, you know what? We did. We have a program that works with science in our garden. So they're able to take tours, and we give them homework, and the teachers bring it in the form of a science project. So I don't think one size is going to fit all, and I think that this is what this gentleman is telling us. One size doesn't fit all
Pat,
anymore.
What you're not.
This is not the 60s.
Right, this is not the 60s.
No, I'm saying the graduation rate in the Jersey City school system is like high 60s.
But Pat, what
you want me to teach a kid how to cook, but the kid can't read.
But Pat, what you're missing, and this is important, and that was the whole point of the book I wrote that I featured tonight. This is not then. This is the book.
No, I just want to show. I know I brought a book for you with those DVDs.
Right,
They're in here somewhere.
But
I got him.
This young man on the line, and let's really deal with him while he's here. If we don't spark the
answers to our school problem is in our past on how we handle things before.
But you know what?
There's too much political correctness, too much trying to get involved in the family unit at home from the school perspective.
There is no family unit.
Well, then whose fault is that?
But what do you just leave the kid out there?
Well, that goes back again to education. When you don't have education,
it's
not one size fits all. Everyone shares the responsibility in this, because it was a generation that left these children behind. So there's enough blame for everyone. Because you know what? I went to public school also. But you know what? It sparked my interest. It kept me there. And some of the things that kept me there, believe it or not, was the art program.
Yeah.
And I am an A student.
What did your mother and father do? They make you go to school every day?
They didn't have to. They didn't have to. That's right.
They instilled that in you.
No, listen to me. I had teachers that were phenomenal people.
I had good teachers.
I had parents, not good.
Sure
I didn't say.
Let me interrupt this conversation.
Yeah, we're running out of time.
We're running out of time.
Minutes, yeah.
Let me say this, Pat. What you're talking about is what I talked about. I had parents that did that too. But these are 16-year-old kids having babies.
Yes.
They're babies themselves.
They're not. Babies.
You can't. At 16, I was in a rebellion. I was rebellious as anybody else. The difference was my community said you can be as rebellious as you want between your ears.
Yes.
Only between your ears.
It will not come out of your mouth.
But if you're 16 years old and you set up a household, it's very hard for an adult to tell you anything. It's all right. We're over. We got 2 minutes.
You got end in 2 minutes.
I know, but Pat, please.
and let's remember the Great Migration. Now you have families that don't live together because they're in different states. I was born. Look, I came from New Orleans in Mississippi, so it's not like I can turn around and my parents are right here. You know that.
Yes.
Astor Place raised us. We came here as young adults, literally.
Well, raised you. I was a young adult
when I say
there.
us, I mean myself and my sister. Remember, I graduated from high school. We bought a house. That's how that happened. So someone had to teach us how to be homeowners.
And you learned that in school, and you learned that from your
You learned it at home and at school.
You're
right. It was a community issue.
We're about to we're talking over each other, so we have to calmed us down a little bit.
Tell them how about your Twitter account. Tell them how they can reach you and the radio.
But Pat, please, I'm getting ready to do that.
That's the director in me. Is still
Try
here.
not to, First, I'll say this: we're Twitter, Earl Morgan Hour, Facebook, the Earl Morgan Hour. Our call-in number for next week is 718-888-7444. Donate to GoPro Radio at www.goproradio.com. Click the donate button on the homepage, and any amount is appreciated. Thank you very much for being a good audience and sparking such a lively show.
Yeah, you got to bring me back.
And we're going to be civil this time.
Well, we were always civil. We were just passionate in our views. It wasn't hostile. It was good.
Say good night.
All right. With that, we're out.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.